And let's do roll call and seating of alternates. So Christina Davis, I'm present. Pam Summers.
Here.
Judy Austin.
Here.
Keith Lipker.
Here.
Paul Varga.
Here.
Angie DeSanto. Not here. Tim Rhodes. Not here. And Khalid Love. Not here. Okay, so we have 5 members, so that's a quorum. We don't have to seat an alternate. We don't have an alternate present, so that's that. Excuse me. For communications, I received a number of emails regarding to one of our agenda items. The item B, request from Ashford Conservation Commission to discuss moving the donation from the Yale Forest, about $8,000 yearly, to the Open Space Fund, which we will get to later in the agenda. And so I hope all the members were able to see the emails that we received. They were linked in the agenda, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of other communications, I did hear from the auditor. This will sound like a repeat of last year, that I asked, can we have the presentation in December? And he said, can we please do it in January? So, and I said, pretty please, can we do it in December? And he said, pretty please, can we do it in January? So I think we're going to do that in January. Thank you. I like this peanut gallery we have here laughing at me. So I think that's where we're going to end up, unfortunately. But I think we have the numbers of like where we closed out the year. We are going to talk about the CNR fund and where that's ending up. So I think we have the pieces of information that we need, and then we'll get the audited info in early January. And last year we ended up in February, so we don't want to end up in February again, getting the audit. Other communications, I got the calendar for the Region 19 budget schedule, which we have to use to determine our budget schedule. It was, my only concern is I did get the final dates from the superintendent today, but the document says draft. So I'm not 100% sure that it was approved. So once we get to that calendar discussion, I think we might not want to finalize that schedule tonight. We might want to put that one off, just because I don't want to approve something that hasn't, with dates in it, that hasn't been approved by their board. I think that's it for communications. So the next item on the agenda is approved minutes for the regular meeting held on October 24th, 2024. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Pam made a motion. Anybody like to make a second? Judy made the second. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Couldn't think of the word. Opposed? Any abstentions? Keith, did you vote?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So that was unanimous.
I voted yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment. So are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, Cheryl, go right ahead.
I don't know if this is the appropriate place. I wanted to speak to the Yale money going toward the conservation or the open space fund.
I think this is the right time to do it.
Where did you go?
Oh yeah, I'm still here. I point.
I'm looking at the ceiling.
Here.
It's okay. I can talk to the ceiling. That's okay.
Well, you know, okay, I'll just leave it like that. I just want people to be able to hear you.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
I think everybody
Okay.
here. Okay.
So-
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I didn't have an opportunity to write a letter, but I did want to weigh in on this. I know that a couple years ago, this had been brought to the attention of the Board of Finance, and there was some misunderstanding that by funding the Open Space Fund, that meant that the Board of Finance was approving of any expenditures from there, which was not true. The taxpayers would approve any monies that they wanted to come out of the Open Space Fund. It's the responsibility of the Board of Finance to then come up with the funding. So if you fund your Open Space Fund, then that is where you can take your funds from. If you don't fund the Open Space Fund, then you're going to end up taking money from your unassigned fund, and that could have impacts beyond what you're actually considering now. Also, using the Yale money, it's not tax money. It's not income from tax dollars. So it wouldn't impact taxpayers other than this money donated to the town by a non-taxable entity would go into that fund to fund projects for open space. It's not taxed. They are not taxed, so it's not tax dollars. So that would make the most sense. And thirdly, the plan of conservation and development. One point I think it's still the current plan, was to fund this, fund the open space fund on an annual basis, which has never been done. And that was a charge to the Board of Finance, approved in the open space, in the plan of conservation and development, and accepted by the taxpayers. So we're about 10 years behind getting that right. And I think that is all I have to say. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Michelle, not one that was passed by the taxpayers? What year?
Did you hear that question, Cheryl?
I could look back and see, but I don't recall when the last plan of conservation and development was approved by the town.
2015 is
Okay,
the
so it is still in effect.
Yeah. Okay. Any other public comment? Okay. Next item is Select Women's Update. I don't see Catherine. So I guess we don't have an update. That's okay. Okay, so next item on the agenda is request from Ashford Conservation Commission to discuss moving the donation from the Yale Forest, about $8,000 yearly, to the Open Space Fund. I mean, I could provide some background, but maybe Loretta, it would be more appropriate for you.
Okay. First of all, we have a map of our present open space, and it's color coded, so we can take a look at that while I'm talking. So, unfortunately, the people on Zoom don't have one, but.
Hey, Christina, it's Paul.
Yeah.
Real quick, since we can't really see it that well, does it list how many acres are open space right now, and privately owned or town owned or public owned, etc.?
It's a color coded on the thing, and I have things added up.
I should be able to email it to you real quick, Paul.
Oh, okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, in our town, we have 39.5 square miles, and it's 340 acres per mile, which amounts to 25,280 total acres. The protected space, from if you look at add all the numbers up, is 8,400 456 acres, which at that represents about 33% of the total area of Ashford. Now, if you also look at the map, one of the areas is nonprofit camps, and that's 1,428. It's the yellow on the map. And that is not, even though it is classified as open space, it's really not open space permanently protected, because at any point, and this has happened in the past, these organizations could sell some of their lands, one of them being the Boy Scouts, and other places in our state have sold, other areas of Boy Scouts have sold some of their land. And there's been a lot of controversy about that. So even though we put that in the category, when we deduct that amount of 1,428 acres, then we only have 7,028 acres, which is about 27% of our total area. And I also want to point out to you, if you look at the map, the protected development rights, which is the brown area, is 728 acres. Now, those people in those territories still pay taxes. It's not a tax-free kind of thing. It's open space in that development rights are protected, and what that means is you can't sell it up in small amounts. You have to sell it in the block, whatever that block is that was put in development rights. So be assured of that. The other thing, which is a very large portion, is the Yale Forestry thing, which is 1,839 acres. Again, at any point, Yale Forest could sell that land. So we don't have any control over what they do. We assume that Yale is a pretty strong institution, so we're assuming that that wouldn't be sold. But that's always something to really consider. Now, the land trust, a lot of the land trusts in our town are Joshua's Trust properties, and Joshua's Trust is committed to maintaining an open space. Also, those properties are open to residents in town for use of trails or hiking or whatever they want to do in their bird watching or whatever. So again, it's a value to the town. So keeping that in mind, all of those things that I've said, I have pages here all over the place. Where's that big paper I read?
Hi, Catherine. Can you say, oh, here, I'm waving, hi.
My apologies for being late.
That's okay.
I did forward you out my update via email.
Okay, do you want to do it after this item, or do you just want me to forward it?
Whenever you would like.
Okay. Why don't we'll do that after this.
When I read those numbers.
So it just, in the interest of moving things along, so just to give background to folks, so Yale, as Loretta pointed out, is this kind of color land, 1,800 acres in the northeastern section of town. And they, starting in like 2019, 2020,
Oh, here it is.
started for the first time giving us pilot money. Is that correct, Cheryl? You probably
No, that's not correct. Prior to sending it to the town as a donation, they were sending it in as tax dollars. But when the rate went up for open space, when that changed dramatically, they withdrew their tax payment and created their own donation rather than payment of taxes. They were tax exempt, but they were paying it as a tax for many years, and I'm not sure how many, but many before 2019.
What was the amount that they were paying previously? Do you remember?
They were paying it along as a tax, so it was based on the PA 490 for open space forest land. But the state rate was increased, allowing the town to increase that, and when the town increased that, it dramatically increased what they would be paying, and it was more than they were willing to donate.
Right, but was it less than $8,000 or more than $8,000? What they
It was
paid?
It was less than 8,000 at that time. Yeah.
So,
So they-
anyway, so there was a switch where this went from this tax, non-tax donation.
Yes, it was awkward, yes.
More flat, I guess, pilot payment. That's how it's listed in our budget documents. It says it's the Yale pilot payment.
Mhm.
And so that money comes into the town annually until such time as Yale decides to change or revoke it, I suppose. They could kind
Right,
of
and the exact
do whatever they
amount
want.
right now is $8,058.58.
Okay.
And right now, in our open space fund, we have 2,041 and 67 cents. So that's what we have right now.
Okay.
So I looked around at other towns, and Lebanon has $2,000 and $200,000 in their open space fund. It has been as high as 500,000, and it vacillates based on what they're doing with their open space property. If they're encouraging people like to give their money to a land trust or something. And what happens then is they can get state grant funding for paying for some of that to like the legal fees, attorney's fees and stuff, like the registration in the town and all that kind of stuff. So people can apply, and most of the time they can apply and get a state grant for that. But the state grant doesn't cover some of these other legal requirements, so that they can help people do that. That's one of the ways. It's not only just purchasing development rights, but that's one of the ways towns can help. And in Lebanon, they actually have staff that promotes and helps people get access to these programs and or get access to a land trust or a grant program. So that's one. Brooklyn has annually allocates $1,000 per person to their open space fund. So that comes out to usually somewhere around $8,400. And their fund presently is $200,000. So, you know, it's similar. Not similar to us, but it's similar. But the thing about Brooklyn is they don't have any staff to help out with helping people negotiate this process, which they're trying to work on getting that. In Wellington presently has 119,000 in their open space fund. The Conservation Commission asked for $30,000 a year to be put in the fund. For the past 2 years, they've gotten $25,000. And there's anticipation that this year they will again ask for the 30,000, and they will end up getting probably 25,000. And they're presently trying to purchase a property on Burma Road, which abuts Benton Ruby, and it also is right near the Ashford border. So hopefully that's going to add to that open space area that includes the big area of Benton Ruby and our own area of Langhamer, which is around 80 acres of town land. And what their process is, the Board of Finance looks at things and they can say either yes or no. If they say yes, it goes on to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen reviews it and said, if they say yes, there's a town meeting called, and everybody can vote on whether to use X amount of money for buying something or helping someone put their land in land trust or something like that. Though if someone is in PA 490 and they get out of it, they want to subdivide and whatever, then they have to pay some fees of that, and that goes in to the open space fund. Eastford, which is a little bit smaller than us, they often put money in, but it's not a regular thing that they put in money every single year. So that's comparable towns. And Eastford also gets money from Yale, like we do. Not tax money, but just a donation. That again it can come and go. And my assumption obviously is that if at any point Yale Force stopped their donation, then $8,000 is not going to go into, those years that they stopped. I don't anticipate that happening, but that's just something to think about. And again, 2,041.67 is what we have presently, and our Yale donation is $8,058.58. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the background for all of this is in terms of people get all nervous when you say, oh, we have too much open space, we don't need any more and all this. And it's losing money to have open space. All the research shows that having open space adds value to the town, both economic benefits, business benefits, government, and households. One of the things when you have open space is you don't have to maintain anything, which is what you have to do. And also if you have residents, you've also got schools to maintain, which I think is probably the biggest part of your budget. So you have that. And then research has also found that the property close to permanently protected open space also influences the value of that property. It goes up, it doesn't go down. So again, residents benefit from all of this. And then there's the big health benefits because of all the things. When you have open space, that helps clean up the environment, helps keep the water clean. And we're really fortunate in Ashford in that we have the cleanest water in the state. And it does run in, the Mount Hope does eventually run into the Willimantic Reservoir. But it's well known that our water is as pure can be in this day and age in our country, but it's very important. And one of the things is that open space reduces pollution, and it also reduces stormwater risk. So again, it's positive. And then what I mentioned before is that the space provides recreational opportunities, and the people in Ashford really like hiking, biking, bird watching, boating, etc. Now we have in the 2015 POCD several statements which the town approved. So this is part of the town's plan. We have several mentions of what's under the natural resources section, which is the vision for the town. The town of Ashford will promote environmental protection and stewardship of resources for the benefit of generations to come. And in the section previous to that, it's talking about the establishment of the Conservation Commission. And it says the Conservation Commission, the Ashford Conservation Commission envisions an Ashford that continues to maintain its character and charm, often described as rural character. The acquisition or preservation of carefully selected open spaces is a key component of maintaining community charm. The Conservation Commission recognizes that it is essential to provide a variety of types of open space in order to maintain rural character. And I think we talk a lot in our town about what is rural character. And I think everyone has a different understanding, but part of it is we don't really want large businesses. We want some business. We don't want, like the town clearly said no to or didn't want it as a whole for the huge warehouse. But that is not the way they feel about all business. And we've just had, through what was Horse listeners, now Cook's Orchard, we have some new people who have bought the property and want to make a sustained business of not only just dealing with apples, but maybe, and I think there's a proposal before the planning and zoning to have people come there and have a little site where they can sit and have cider, hard and soft cider and stuff like that. So they're trying to keep the place agriculture, but also bring in some activity in town and bring in some business to the town, because if there's more business going on, something like, for instance, Westford Distillery, Westford Hills, brings in a lot of people to the town. It's a destination location. So I think they're trying to do that, which is in line what the Conservation Commission approves of also, of businesses that are agriculture in nature and support us. So further on in the POCD is under, they have a special section under, this is 2015, oh, I'm dating myself. Open space recreation. Objective 3, encourage passive and active outdoor recreation, including fishing, hunting, biking, boating, and bird watching. And it gives 4 examples of things. And then it talks about habitat, which is promote habitat diversity. And part of that is create green corridors by linking open space parcels, prioritize areas with identified threatened species. And every year, the state looks at our town, and if there are any threatened species, they have a critical area map. They won't tell you what it is because they don't want people tramping in all those places and looking for whatever it is.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we also do have a full agenda, and I want to open it up to questions from the board. So if you want to maybe give a little quick summary, and then we can start to ask questions, which I'm sure there will be.
Okay, well, the
Thank
quick
you.
summary is just that I think both the POCD and the Ashford Open Space Plan say that we really want to support an open space fund with ongoing donations. And the open space plan of 2050 definitely suggested an amount that the town would add to the open space fund. So it's mostly, I just wanted to say that the town plan is to really promote an ongoing building open space plan.
Thank you. And thank you for all your homework. And you did a lot of research and bringing in what other towns are doing, which I found very helpful. So I appreciate that. So questions from the board members?
Yeah, this is Keith.
Mhm.
I just like to, with the donations from Yale in the past,
Hold on.
where is that money?
Keith, hold on one second. Sorry, this is Keith Lipker, board member. Sorry, start over again, Keith.
That's right. Yes, with the donations from Yale, in the past years, where has that money been going? What has it been used for?
So it just goes in like the current situation, not talking about years prior when it was these other kind of payments, but since they switched, it just goes in, it's just a part of the revenue stream, right? So, and it's not earmarked for anything. So it goes into the general fund to fund anything that we wanted to fund, or, et cetera. I think that's probably the best reasonable way to describe it.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions or comments?
Christina,
Go ahead, Paul.
I have a bunch of questions. I'm sure you're surprised. So I just wanted to touch real quick, actually, first, Mike, I had the same question as Keith, just for the public's knowledge. Right now, that money goes into the general fund, which, so that does impact taxes in the sense that if you took that $8,000 out, it would be we'd have to make up that $8,000 somewhere. So we would, like, we count on it, it's counted as revenue. So somewhere we'd have to make it up. It's not a lot, it's like just under $2 a person. per capita, but it's still money. So I just wonder, Loretta said that a lot of people have commented that we have a lot of open space, if you will, already. So what's the goal of the Conservation Commission? Like, is there a number we have in mind? Right now, we're at 33%, and I understand that some of that is not in, if you will, in the town's control. So that also brings up another question. What's the actual percentage number we're looking at, or the acreage number we're looking at, that the Conservation Commission or the town thinks is appropriate? And then what type of control do they want over that property? The state of Connecticut has an enormous amount of property within the town of Ashford already. So the town doesn't have control over it, but the state does. So I'm just kind of curious what that number is. And then I'm confused, because my understanding was that the land trust, i.e. Joshua Trust and the Wyndham Land Trust, do not pay taxes. Is that incorrect?
They do not pay taxes.
Okay. All right. So approximately, and thank you, Christina, for showing me the map or sending me the map, but and I don't have the number in front of me, what the acreage is of land trust numbers, but those acreages do not pay taxes. So there's a tax loss there. And I realize that the development rights properties do pay taxes but at the PA 490 rate, I'm sure, and that was another question I had. Is there anybody other than myself who actually actively has property under PA 490 and understands how it works? You do, Cheryl?
I do, yes. And I also, what was your last comment? They don't pay taxes
The land
unless they're
trust.
490?
Want to do a back and forth between non-board members. So
Yeah.
can we stop for a second, Paul, and
Sure.
on your questions? So let's try.
Okay, go ahead.
So the
Sorry.
first one was, what's the goal that the Conservation
Right.
Commission
Do we
has
have
in mind
They have a
in terms of
number,
percentage?
right?
It's not a percentage, because what we're looking at now, we're fine in terms of percentage. The goal, the overall goal of the state of Connecticut is 21%. We are obviously over that. What the goal is to look at available properties that are key pieces that would really make a difference in terms of maintaining the clean water, maintaining the diversity of wildlife, giving corridors for animals and stuff. And the town benefits when animals are there, because a lot of people in town are hunters. So all of this is a package deal, but there isn't, to say, oh, we want to get up to 100%, or, that's ridiculous. Obviously, I don't think it's so much increasing the percentage. It's more looking at some key areas that would really keep the water fresh, for instance, and not pollute, particularly up the two areas where we were talking about with the warehouse, which were the beginnings of two major rivers. So that it's more of that. It's looking at what property is this, how does it impact, and what's going to really help or hinder that property. That's what's the goal right now.
And then Paul's other question was, what type of control does the Conservation Commission want over these potentially preserved lands or open space lands?
Would this be appropriate to make a point of order? Because it's not the Board of Finance's responsibility to monitor what the Conservation Commission's goals are. It's the Board of Finance's responsibility to maintain fiscal integrity for the town.
Well, I think we're being asked to fund something, and
A designated fund.
we're being asked to allocate money into a fund. And if we are to do that, I think we need to understand the goals. And so I think it's totally appropriate what Paul asked.
The goal would be to have funds available.
So
In
Cheryl,
event-
I'm sorry, but I think it's appropriate for Loretta to answer this question. If she wants to designate you to answer it, that's fine, but I feel like it should be her that
Well,
answers.
I was more making a point of order than answering the question. I could answer the question, but I was making a point of order.
What is your point
That's
of?
fine.
Okay.
It might not be appropriate for a point of order. That's fine.
Okay. So Paul, your question again, I just want to make sure I'm summarizing, or you could restate it. What type of control? Do you want to sort of say that one more time and then Loretta can answer it?
Well, I think she answered the question. They want the Conservation Commission's goal is to acquire properties that have impact on environmental concerns, if you will. And if I summarize it wrong, Loretta, please correct me. But so whether it's through outright purchase or development rights purchase or whatever it may be, the goal is to prevent development on certain tracts of land within the town.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. However, usually whatever program you're under has a lot of stipulations in it that
Correct. Right.
don't put those stipulations up. So
Right.
that and also the money is coming from the Board of Finance, and the Board of Finance has to approve. I mean, we could come to you and say, oh, we wanna, purchase the development rights of this 100-acre property somewhere. And you could say no, and that's it. I mean, our control is limited. We're just.
Yeah, I didn't think that was the case. I thought that was a town vote, not a Board of Finance.
That's right. It would be up to the Board of Finance to find the funds, but it would be the
Right.
town that would vote on the.
The fund is there. Once the Board of Finance looks first at it, then it goes through the town channel.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
If the funds aren't in the open space fund, then it has to come out of undesignated fund balance.
Right.
Judy, you haven't said anything. Just want to give you a chance to absorb. Let me throw a curveball into this conversation. Because when I did some research on this, I wanted to look at what other towns are doing as well. And that's why I was glad to see that you brought that information as well. One of the things that I came up with right away, because one of my concerns is, to be frank, we have an open space fund and it's not in our audit. And there's no way for us to even know what's in there. Now that could probably be remedied by talking to our auditor and saying, like, make sure that this is in the next report. So that's something that needs to be done, and I can take that as a to-do. But I do get nervous about squirreling away money in a fund that maybe we don't realize it's there or forget that it's there. And if it's done in this sort of onesie, twosie, well, this year we approved the transfer and that year we didn't, I don't know how far we're really going to get in terms of actually getting towards a goal of building a fund. So when I looked at other towns, what I'm noticing is these allocations are part of the budget. And in some cases, it's just part of the town general government budget. A transfer is included in the budget, every year from the general fund to an open space fund, or in some cases, it's called a land acquisition fund. But it's there in the budget, and then it becomes part of a conversation at the Board of Selectmen level. Then it comes here to the Board of Finance. It's debated, discussed, increased, decreased, depending on the circumstances of the year. And then eventually goes to town meeting and referendum, where the town gets the final say to say, yes, we want to, along with funding all these other aspects of our town, we want to fund open space, and there's a line item there for everybody to see. And so, like, for example, Hebron, the town of Hebron does that. Woodstock also does that. And then you mentioned Lebanon, and I just quickly looked it up. So Lebanon, the way they appear to be funding their open space fund is through their capital budget. So that would be potentially another avenue where this could be discussed.
I think that's a similar that Wellington does. They have
Okay.
capital.
Could be. So I think that some sort of avenue where this funding of the fund is part of a budget conversation, I think is a better way to go than us kind of arbitrarily, from year to year going like, oh, we're gonna transfer this money, oh, we're not gonna transfer this money. It's not, and I worry, quite frankly, you know, there is a vocal group that came here to support it, and I acknowledge that, but we're not getting the full breadth of the town's input at this meeting, whereas through a budget process, everyone would have ample time to look at it, absorb it, discuss it, debate it, etc. So that's my thinking on it. One other thing I noticed, particularly with Hebron, is they actually have their land acquisition fund and their land acquisition committee. And they actually have an ordinance that like lays it all out, like what the committee does and what the fund does. And again, I just think from like a good governance and a fiscal responsibility standpoint, that like makes the most sense to me. So that you know exactly what the responsibility of this committee is. They have the blessing of the town to go out and talk to landowners about, you know, what the potential properties are that could be reserved, and then can build a case for why it needs to be in the budget. And then I think, quite frankly, you can talk about bigger sums than just $8,000. Well, I don't know, but so that's just my, I think it's not an easy thing, you know, but I think that would be the approach that I would feel comfortable with. So I don't know, any other thoughts after my little speech there?
Christina,
Hi, Paul.
that was a great speech, actually. Wasn't even a curveball. It's actually pretty, I agree with that, because maybe it's not the right spot, but I was going to say during the discussion, I'm a large property owner in town myself. I think we're doing this, going about or thinking about this the wrong way. I've advocated for a long time that one of the problems we have, and we're not the only town that has it, is that the reason we have a problem with holding on or having people keep open space is because of the cost to live in these towns, Ashford included. So when you present it as a budget item and the taxpayers get to speak about it and know that what it will, quote, cost them, if you will, to add to that fund, that's an open conversation for everybody in town. And it's not limited to just the 6 or 7 or 9 board members of the Board of Finance, or I don't know how many the Conservation Commission has, or even the Ag Commission, or the Board of Selectmen. It's a much broader discussion, and I think that it's only fair to the townspeople to have them involved in it. We are, you know, there's a lot of different ways to go about this, but I think that is probably one of the best ways I've heard so far. And it sounds like, and it looks like, I did the research too, that other towns are doing the same thing in that manner. They're bringing it up as a budget item, whether it's capital projects or a regular under the Board of Selectmen's budget line item. And that's the appropriate way in my mind as well. Thanks.
Catherine, do you want to chime in? Yeah, because this starts to get into your neighborhood.
Unfortunately, the acoustics are not the best, so I didn't hear everything. But one thing I was thinking about is that today in our planning and zoning requirements or whatever, whenever anybody's doing development, you know, purchase property, they're doing development or whatever, they are supposed to, I believe, allocate a certain percentage of the property to the town. I'm not quite sure how that works. And rather than doing that, as far as I can tell, it's like carving out a piece of property that's never going to be used. And I would rather see that we were charging those people for what would that property would have been, and if we had a fund like we're talking about, and put the monies into there. But I'd like to do some additional research. I haven't seen a write-up on this, nor have I discussed it with the Board of Selectmen. So I do agree, if you were going to create a fund, you would have to have very clear a very clear description of what the objective of the fund is and what those monies could be used for.
Well, and to be clear, the fund exists, an open space fund exists, we're told.
Right, but where's it, how's it being funded? I couldn't hear that.
Yeah, I don't think we know, or it has
Okay, good.
$41.67 in it. So at some point, some money got put there. I
There
don't
was
know the
a lot of
history.
money put in there.
Okay, so let's take a look. I would suggest taking a look at that, making sure we have some kind of a write-up. And I do agree with Paul. I do think it's something that should come before the public. But I think that when it does, it needs to be well described. It needs to be presented in advance in some way so that the public understands what we're really talking about. Because sometimes people just get a thought in their head and they don't understand it, and they come in ginned up and primed to vote something down. So I've seen it numerous times. So again, I'd love to see something in writing, something I could take to the Board of Selectmen as well.
So I think, you asked the question, so how do we make this happen? And I think the answer is it's going to start with the Board of Selectmen. And, I would be happy to be part, if there is like a committee that forms to kind of look at this and figure out, what are other towns doing? And, do we pursue a budget line item versus just a transfer from the general fund, but I think that research needs to happen, needs to be brought back to the Board of Selectmen. And then also we need to evaluate, do we need things like an ordinance and an official committee and all that kind of stuff? I don't know if legally that's required or not, but kind of sounds like the next step is like some sort of committee that would then work and bring info back to the Board of Selectmen to move it forward. Is that accurate, Catherine?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah, that's okay. So I hope you don't feel like we're kicking the can down the road. But I
don't feel that way at all. I don't know if my other two members feel that. I don't feel that way. I want the ball to get rolling. And I agree that I think it should be, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen are looking at how do we set up a process, because it seems like most of the other towns have a process. And it may be Wellington where they have a group of people who, when they put a request in, look at and research it, and then it goes through the channels, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, public hearing. I mean, I don't think that we should have a fund an open space fund where we're talking about monies and not have a public hearing on that. That's not our intention. I think is right now is to get the ball rolling so that we can have money if something happens to come up that, in the future, not right now. We're not talking right now.
Right.
But I also.
Yeah. And I think, the other thing that kind of just to, like, I think we're kind of past this point, but the other thing that kind of concerns me about, like, if we were to vote tonight to transfer money, that to me is really something that should be done only in an emergency situation. Like the school burned down, we got to transfer money real quick, get it done. And I feel like this kind of thing really needs to be part of the budget. So
but
it sounds.
Also, let me tell you, I had to really search to find out where is the open space fund within the budget. We had to really search, and Sharon didn't know at that moment, and then she, someone else helped her that she happened to be having a meeting with, and said, no, it should be here too. So yes, I think it is somewhat hidden right now, and that's totally unhealthy, particularly when you're coming to finances.
Right.
Because people get really fired up.
Sure do. So it sounds like we have a kind of a next step, right? We need to do some research and bring that back to the Board of Selectmen. I'm happy to help if you guys want to reach out to me and help do some research. If there are other Board of Finance members that are interested, of course, I'll put that info out there. But it sounds like we can move the ball forward that way. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Also, Loretta, you can reach out to me as well.
Great.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Paul mentioned his property, and then Cheryl said hers was the same, some specific type of property. I didn't quite get that.
It's,
PA 490. It's a tax designation for land, right? Yeah. I don't think that's totally important in the, yeah, but I don't know that we, not that important, but. Okay, so I think we can move on. I appreciate everybody's time and listening and
Thank you.
being open to this conversation. I think that was great. Okay, next item. Oh, yeah.
Bill. Bill's it's
Yeah. Did you need anybody else's name, Valerie?
Oh, I know the other names.
Okay.
Steve, S-K-Y?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding the closing out of capital projects. So this was, we started this conversation at the last meeting. I'm going to try to bring up the spreadsheet. Cheryl, you're going to get flashbacks to So hopefully everybody, I know, because last meeting we went through it and it's kind of complicated, and I wanted to give everybody a chance to kind of look at it and see if they had any questions. But just to summarize, so this is a list of all the capital projects of the last few years and where they stand. And Cheryl, or not Cheryl, Sherry did go through and give us a list of which projects are completed. So those are the school van replacement, that project is done, which has a negative $785 balance. You can see on here, $785, negative $785. The fire alarm system is done for $1,203. That's a negative balance. The replace heat exchanger for Ashford School is done, and that was a positive 193 left over. The oil tank replacement has $91,975 left over. The playscape for $564. The mini excavator for $359. The school mid bus $1,494, and the generator replacement $44,503. So what we need to do hopefully tonight is vote to close out those projects and return the net amount, which comes to $137,100 to the CNR fund. So basically we're just saying these projects are done. And if you add up all the numbers, the two negatives and all the positives, you get $137,100. So does anybody have any questions about that?
Okay, so these funds are going into the CNR fund.
Correct.
And then we'll have a discussion later about the oil.
Yes, we can do that. Yeah, we'll treat that as a separate conversation.
No, but I mean for the school.
Yep. But what we'll do is we'll return all $91,975 to the CNR fund, and then we can discuss how that was funded and make a motion potentially. So I will make a motion to close out the following capital projects and return the net amount of $137,100 to the CNR fund. And those are the projects that I listed earlier. I'm not going to list them again. So that I made that motion. Would anybody like to second that motion?
I'll second.
So that was Keith.
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that was unanimous. So the next conversation is regarding the oil tank replacement funding. And I believe I sent an email to the board members outlining what the history on that was, so. Let me just, give me 1 second to call that up. Actually, wait, I think I have it. I think I have it here. Okay. Okay. So I've looked up the minutes. So in August 25th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Finance, we talked about this oil tank replacement project. And we noted that the estimate on the project was $270,000, with the town and the school non-lapsing fund splitting the cost at $135,000 each. And then the budget package for that year notes that the Ashford School UF, which is unassigned fund balance or non-lapsing fund, that isn't quite the right acronym, but the non-lapsing fund for the school contributed $135,000, and that was what was approved for that budget. So what I am proposing this evening is that because the school paid for half of that project with their non-lapsing fund, that we should return half of the project surplus, which comes to $45,987.50 to the Ashford Board of Education non-lapsing fund. Yes, Judy.
So in January, on January 13th, 2022, the reason we went from the 1% fund to the 2% fund was because the school didn't have enough funding in total to go half on that tank.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the discussion came, from the 1% to the 2% one-time deal. So they could have the extra money to do that. So they had agreed to paying half of that tank.
Right.
So why are we discussing money going back to them?
Because there was money left over on the project, not like it was under, so they estimated $270,000.
Yeah, I have.
And it was $90,000 less than that. So what's that, 190? Am I doing my math right? About 190. So about $90,000 didn't get spent. So in fairness, I think we should give half the money back to the non-lapsing fund for the school, and half the money stays in the CNR fund.
But that's not what our minutes say. So our minutes on October 27th, 2022 says the town will be reimbursed 63% of the school oil tank. That's what we said in our minutes.
The 63% is the money that comes from the state.
Right. So it was the reimbursed.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you're saying it's under, because we got reimbursed.
We got reimbursed and we got
But our
insurance,
minutes say
I think
it
some
goes back
insurance.
to the town, it doesn't say it goes back to the school.
Because the project was funded through the capital budget, which is part of the general government budget, but the school contributed money. I don't really want to debate it that much, quite frankly. Does anybody else have any other comments on it?
I'm just saying what the minutes say, I don't.
Does anybody else have any other comments or questions about it?
If I could say something, did I just hear that you said that the capital improvement budget was part of the general government budget? Or a capital improvement plan was part of the general government budget? Because it is not.
Okay, how should I have said that?
It's separate.
Christina, it's Paul, can I just, I want to add on to what Catherine just said?
Mhm.
If that's okay?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, your screenshot's up, so I can't see anybody.
Oh, I can stop sharing.
That's okay.
There you go.
So to Catherine's point, the Capital Projects Committee was the one involved in the discussion about how that oil tank replacement was going to be funded. And that was part of that discussion was that the town would pay half and the school would pay half. I think the intention would have been that should we get any funds back, that we would split those funds accordingly. I mean, the Board of Finance did vote to increase from the 1% to the 2%, which we all know now is statute anyway. And as of this year, they took that out of our control almost completely. So I don't disagree with you. I think that money should go back to the schools unassigned fund balance. You know, there was a lot of reasons that we got that, saved that money. It wasn't just the reimbursement. There was a lot of stuff that the town and the school did together to make that savings happen. So I think that that's the appropriate thing, in my mind.
The other thing to note, you know, I mean, we kind of get caught up a little bit in like this account versus that account. I mean, it's all the same at the end of the day. We're all take care.
Yeah, the next thing is when we have the capital projects committee, if we have a project that needs funding, we're gonna try to, it's all gonna be figured out somehow, right? We hope. And it's all gonna come out of it. Like you said, it's the same pile, just divided it up differently.
Right. And I just think it's a good show. It's just a show of good faith on
100%.
our part. You know, we want the school to put their resources behind these capital projects. And so, you know, to me, it's just a show of good faith that we're willing to return these funds. Even though they're gonna turn it right back around to fund another capital project.
I mean, like, could you look at it that when this was in planning, which I had no knowledge of in 2022, it was like an estimate and it came in at a different amount and
Yes.
then money came back or wasn't spent, and that you had agreed to split it 50-50, so you split what's left over 50-50. It
So I
seems to make sense.
I don't have a problem with that, but I
Yeah.
have a problem with is the minutes don't state that.
Yeah,
The minutes from, August 25th of 2022. State Ms. Ford, current superintendent, has been looking at the BAS grant for the oil tank. Originally, the insurance company was not going to maintain the coverage after October 1st, but has extended the coverage because of the acceptable pressure test. State originally was going to reimburse the town for the replacement of the oil tank project 73 to 74%, but currently is noting 63%. The estimate has remained at $270,000 with the town and the school non-lapsing, splitting the cost. It never said anything else besides that. That's all I'm stating.
Noted,
It's in the minutes.
noted. I think the only thing I will add is just,
I never heard of 50-50. I don't want to give the illusion that there was a 50-50. I'm stating.
well, the funding was 50-50. That's all I'm stating.
Right.
I'm not saying anything other than the funding for this project came half from the school, half from the town.
Correct.
And that's in the minutes.
Correct.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Today, I'm saying because of that, as a show of good faith, I think the right thing to do, and this is my opinion, I'm one person, is to return half of it to the Board of Ed non-lapsing. That's, I'm not saying that appears in the minutes.
And I agree with the good faith thing, except like I said, let's be realistic. That we changed it from the 1% to the 2%, so they have money to do that. And now, you know, the minutes, it says 50-50, so we already gave them additional funds so that they were able to do their half. And now we're saying that we're giving them 50% of what we got back from the state. Just so everybody understands what the minutes say.
So at this point, I'm going to make a motion to authorize the treasurer to transfer half of the surplus from the oil tank replacement project in the amount of $45,987.50 to the Ashford Board of Education non-lapsing fund. Would anybody like to second that motion?
I'll second.
That was Pam. And any discussion, further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Keith, did you vote? Sorry. Keith, did you vote?
Yes, yes, I voted yes.
Voted yes, okay. And then any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay,
Just basically it was presented.
Okay. So the motion carries. We had one abstention and everybody else affirmative. Okay. Also, just to let everybody know, I did run these motions by Sherry Susie to make sure they were good from a technical standpoint, and she said that they were. Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding the 2025-2026 budget calendar. The one, so I did share a preview of this at the last meeting. And then the one thing that makes me a little nervous about it is the Region 19 dates. They were supposed to be approved at the November 7th Region 19 Board of Ed meeting. But it took me a while to get the final dates. I was able to get them from their agenda, but then the superintendent said there were some things that were changed. So she sent me the final list of dates today, but it says draft. And then so I said, well, wait a minute, were these approved or not approved? So, and I don't know, Catherine, if you and Chris had a chance to look at this.
I did.
Okay.
And I have a concern.
What are your thoughts? Should we?
My concern is that there's, let me just see here, where is it? February 28th, general government budgets copies made available to Board of Finance. In order, first of all, there's quite a crunch that's going to have to happen in order to try and make that happen. And we will not make that date if we're not getting the budgets from the town departments until January 10th. When they submit their budgets, often there's questions. We have to go back. We have a number of meetings with the Board of Selectmen going through them. And that's just not enough time to produce a finalized budget, you know, to present to you. So I know Sherry and I are going to be discussing the budget process, our internal budget process next week. I really want those town budgets to us by the beginning of January. So, and that's going to be kind of awkward. I know we have, there's some departments that are already starting, God love them. But we need to send out internally something that says we need to get those budgets before January 10th. I also don't know, with the audit not being completed yet, if there's any work that Sherry's going to need to be doing related to the audit. We had this crunch last year, a much worse one, because of the things that needed to be done. I don't think there's a heck of a lot left on this audit. I am disappointed that it's not being completed by the end of the year as it should be, so that we have it out of our hair. And actually, it should have been presented initially in November and then finalized towards the early December, which is what we used to do. So that would free up people to and our treasurer to work with us in detail on the budget that we have to put forth. So Sherry, is Sherry on? I can't tell.
I don't think she is. I don't believe she is.
All right. So she and I are supposed to be meeting, like I said, next week to go through and make a detailed plan, because we're going to go through and actually rework the information that's being sent out. Last year, when information was sent out, it was not correct initially and confusing to some of the people who received it. So we need to make sure that's all clear and we know what we're working with. So
well,
again,
Catherine, would you want to then, I mean, we don't have to approve this evening. So do you want to take this draft to your meeting with Sherry and then make adjustments?
yes, I do. And unfortunately, none of us had time this week to do that. But I did speak to her about it. Actually, we've talked about it twice.
I think that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The one thing I will say is this hews very closely to what the schedule was last year.
I don't care what the schedule was last year. I'm talking about the fact that in the past, we have not had other things getting in the way while we were doing this. So that's an issue, and only because it came up last year in particular. I can go back and I can look at what we had said before, but do we still have Cheryl Baker on? She had to live this before.
I don't know if she's still there. No,
No, she's not. That's too bad because it was.
And she went running.
And I have to tell you, going through and making sure the numbers are correct and everything was a Herculean effort. I know what my effort was, and we're talking about some all-nighters. I don't want to be in that position again. And that was just getting the numbers to sync up and getting additional information from people. I had to go back to the treasurer 4 times, not the treasurer, I'm sorry, tax collector 4 times to understand what her argument was for getting additional resources. I mean, these are not one-offs with people.
No.
I mean, they're not one and done. They are multiple conversations. And having
schedule of like us approving a calendar. It sounds like, because we technically have a meeting on the schedule of the Board of Finance for next Thursday, but I'm guessing, do you feel like you would have adjustments to that calendar?
I think our primary adjustment, first of all, I'm sorry, could you put the calendar back up again?
Yes.
And I don't want to belabor this. I just want to take another look at it with you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, what you see here is I don't want to upset your schedule when it comes to, you got February 28th for the general government. And then you have that's having your hard copies, and then March 6th you're talking about us presenting it. So getting those hard copies in place for February 28th is tricky. And what I did like about last year's process was that you formulated questions and sent them to us so that we could be prepared to answer them in your meeting.
Right, and that's as well.
And so I understand why you would want to receive the hard copies ahead of time.
Right.
Absolutely. I would have wanted the same thing. I'm just concerned about the time period between January 10th, which is not an actual, has never ended up being a true cutoff because some people just don't get it there in time, and February 28th. So I'm going to be looking at trying to get those budgets before January 10th. That's the first thing.
Right.
And
until December, because I'm just trying to figure out if we should plan on having a meeting next Thursday to consider my calendar, or do you think you need more than 1 week?
So, and typically also, we ask for the annual report at the same time as we ask for the budget, if you'll recall. We do. And so we might stick with a date of like January 10th for the annual report, but I need to get the financials ahead of time.
Yep.
Okay. I'm not looking to delay your annual report information.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So do you think you could have a revision on this for us to consider a week from today, or should we try to give you more time to revise? And
I'd want a little more time because ultimately this is going to be published. So when is your next meeting?
So our next meeting is a week from today.
Perfect. I'll work with the selectmen. I'll work with Sherry. We will come back, and then you can if you don't mind, finalize it next week.
Okay. Yep. That sounds good.
We'll also be doing, as the other boards are, coming up with what our calendars are for the next year as well.
Right. Okay. So we'll move that to the next meeting. I'm gonna speed run through the rest of this agenda because my phone battery is about to die.
And so I've already sent you my report.
Yeah.
My select woman's report.
Can I just email that to everybody? Is that all right? Because my phone's gonna die and then nobody's gonna be able to hear me. That you came on late, but we're having technical issues, Catherine. So
Oh, okay.
The only way the audio is working is on my phone, and my phone battery is gonna die. So is it okay if I email your report to everybody? We handle it that way?
If you're comfortable with it, yes.
Okay. The next item, I'm gonna suggest that we table until next meeting, the discussion and possible action regarding the 22-23 annual report. That's a really lengthy document. I'm guessing nobody spent a ton of time with it, so maybe another week would be helpful for everybody if you spot any errors or typos. If you could let me know ahead of time, that would be great. And then we can approve
I
that
will.
next week. Update on tri-board meeting to discuss the 25-26 budget. That doesn't sound like it's gonna happen, after talking to Jane Urban at the Board of Ed, and just like with holiday schedules, it's just too difficult. And then at the end of the day, she was kind of like, she didn't really think we needed it, and I don't really think we need it. I think we'll be fine. So we're not gonna pursue that. Update on revised process for transfer of monies to the CNR fund. I have not heard from the attorney, the town attorney, and I've sent him 2 emails. So now I'm gonna try calling him, see if I can get some response there. And then the update on the STEEP grant. Catherine, I don't know if have you heard anything on where that stands? Catherine?
I couldn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
I was asking about the STEEP grant. Do we have an update?
Oh, the steep grant, will be submitted to the state for initial review next Wednesday.
Awesome. That's great. to hear.
Okay, and we're dogging it. Unfortunately, you know, I have a limited resource.
Okay, but that's great to hear that there's movement. So good news there.
That'll be for initial review, and then we'll do the follow-ups, whatever they are.
Yeah. Okay, and then agenda items for the next meeting, discussion and possible action regarding the budget calendar, and then the 22-23 annual report. So I think those are the 2 items I have. And then remarks for the good of the board. I appreciate everybody's thoughtful comments tonight. I think the conversation that we had regarding open space in the past has been a little contentious, and I think we navigated it well and respectfully, so I appreciate that. And other than that, I appreciate everybody taking the time to be here. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Have a
All
good
right,
night.
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 There we go. I think my phone's gonna catch on fire,
Uh-oh.
and now I can't seem to log off. Yeah, man.